Okay, so hi guys.
Hey.
So this week I read the 2016 Horizon Report for Higher Education, which focused on new technologies that will influence education over the next 5 years.
Is there anything good in there?
So it talked about BYOD, of course, which I think everything has talked about. It also talked about using virtual reality to help train people, which I thought was really cool, and I could see that being used in college campuses for a lot of the hard sciences, like engineers or stuff like that, something where it's really hard to actually train people how to go out and do these really specific jobs.
Yeah.
One thing that I took away from the report was all these technologies are really cool, and I could see them being used for like the STEM kind of classes, but I can't really see how it applies to maybe anything in the liberal arts arena. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and that's hard for me to visualize too, because I'm a math teacher, so I always see it from a math perspective. Except this week with the product that we had to make, the podcast, I had a really hard time at first coming up with like some way to use this in math. Like I saw all kinds of like cool ELA or whatever application, social studies, but I had to Google some ideas because I was like, I don't know about this. But it turned out to be cool, but at first it was like, I'm not sure. So maybe with a little research, people already are talking about it.
Right, exactly. So,
anything else interesting in there?
They have this other thing where they're teaching robots to understand human emotions. It's called affect technology.
Cool.
And so what they want to do is teach these robots how to read students' emotions so that they can adjust the training for however the student's feeling, which I thought was really interesting.
That is really interesting. I think it has a lot of special ed applications, like in K-12, but even just a regular student,
Yeah.
I feel like students are more emotionally connected today than they were when I was in school. They express themselves all the time via many different outlets. I think that's actually really interesting. I worked last semester with this girl in New Caney ISD, and in that school district they have these they're robots, and they're for students who are homebound, like they are unable to come to school. And the robots walk around with a student, and they travel to the classes that the homebound student would be in, and they allow them to interact with the classroom. And I think already that technology is really cool, but if you add like what did you call it? The
affective.
Yes, affective. That would be like a whole experience. That's really neat.
Yeah.
I read the 2015 higher ed report, and like you said, it had BYOD in it. It had some other things that we've talked about in our previous videos. But I can't remember, did you have the Internet of Things in one of your readings from? Okay, I thought maybe you had mentioned it. I had to do some research on this because the Internet of Things is a very abstract concept, but basically it's like the chip technology works with like Apple Pay. You know how you can pay with something from your phone, right? Or have you heard of like the Nest thermostats that people put in their house? Yeah, so it's basically a relationship between your devices, and so lots of schools are using it. I can't remember which school it was, but every time a student walks into their dorm room, they get like a little color-coded button that tells them how their energy consumption in their room is. Yeah, which is just one example of, of that, the Internet of Things. Very broad and abstract. But what I was thinking is that the biggest idea that I'm taking from all of these Horizon reports is that we need to be training our students to develop these cool technologies.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make an app that does that, measures their consumption, their energy consumption? Instead of training consumers, people who've used the technology, I want to train my students to be the ones who are making the cool technology. And I think the Horizon report, the timeline that they give, like 5 years to adoption is really like 10 years before we're teaching our students how to make it.
Right.
Which, if you consider how fast technology develops, is like a really long time. I don't know. The more I think about it, like the more worried I get about public education. Like, we're not changing education fast enough to keep up with the need for technology participants. I don't know.
Right. But I mean, where do the people who are creating this technology come from, right? So obviously we're giving them the tools to hopefully
somewhere along the line. Maybe it's in higher ed that they're bringing these things up.
Right.
If we start training them earlier, a couple weeks ago, another group talked about how her principal had said, like, part of your job now is to make our education system competitive with other countries.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting because at first it was like, wow, that's not my job. But it kind of is. But I think that we're failing right now in that arena. And if you look at all of the schools that are using the technologies that they're suggesting, they're all international schools in Asia or in Europe. And not that many of our schools are doing it yet.
And that probably comes down to like an administration funding problem. And
yeah, I mean, the Texas Education Agency, we have such a focus on the standardized test, like measuring our students at the end of the year, and that has to go away. You can't. That's not, if you want our students to be good test takers, then we can make them into good test takers, but that's not really going to help them be innovators.
Exactly.
So yeah, I get really excited and I also get really frustrated.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because you have all these really cool tools and new technology you could use, but
yeah. They also talk more about makerspace, and now that I'm reading more about it, like, I need one. I need one in my school. We have all these collaborative areas in our school, but they're just like spaces. Like, I need a lab where I can take my students and they can code stuff and they can 3D print stuff. I'm all about that. Yeah. So maybe 5 years from now, I'll have a makerspace in my school.
You can like spearhead it and be in charge.
It might have to happen that way.
That'd be cool.
Awesome. I think that's it for this week, huh?
Yep.
All right. Until next time.
Bye, guys.